Welcome to the Week 2 NFL Sports Betting Picks video here at 4deepbets.com. My name is Benny Ricciardi, and I'm going to be taking a look at the opening lines from DraftKings and FanDuel, seeing if we can find any value. So let's get into it. The first game up is the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Minnesota 0-1 on the season, having lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 20-17. Philadelphia 1-0 on the year, coming off a win over the New England Patriots 25-20. When I break down the spread in this game, I get Philly should be favored by 7 points. So if we look at this here, 7.5 on DraftKings, 8 on FanDuel, there really isn't any value. I mean, Philly does deserve to be at least a touchdown favorite, maybe even a little bit more against the Vikings. We talked about last week how the Vikings were, probably one of the most overrated 13-4 teams that we've ever seen. They're just really not that good. Tampa Bay kind of proved it last week. The number's probably a little bit too high because of that loss to Tampa Bay, but really I don't see any value in this game. This is the Thursday night football game. The next game up, the Green Bay Packers taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Green Bay 1-0, coming off a win over the Chicago Bears, 38-20. Atlanta also 1-0, coming off a win over Carolina, 24-10. I got to be honest in this game, guys. I have the Packers as a field goal better on a neutral field. Of course, it's not on a neutral field. The game is in Atlanta, but I think the Packers are the team that should be favored here by -1, which is what we see over on DraftKings. FanDuel has it at -1.5, but it's also a better payout at +100 here over there. So I don't know. To me, there's really not a lot of value here. That Packers, that FanDuel number is basically very similar to the -1 on DraftKings at -110. So I don't really see anything in this game as well. The next game up, the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Tennessee Titans. LA is 0-1, coming off a loss in a close game to a good Miami Dolphins team, 36-34. Tennessee 0-1, coming off a loss to a not so good New Orleans team, 16-15. Now, with that being said, I think the Chargers are probably favored by too many points here. My number on this game is the Chargers should be favored by 1. Now, on a neutral field, I do have this game as 3, but it's not a neutral field. It's in Tennessee, and therefore we have to factor in some home field advantage for them. So for me, I think there is a little bit of value here on the Titans +3. Take it over on FanDuel at -110 rather than the -115 that they have over there on DraftKings. DraftKings has it juiced up a little bit, which means, there's probably a better chance that this goes to +2.5. So if you really want to take that 3 on the Titans, I would go take it right now. Like I said, they're even looking at it as the Chargers being favored by 3 is probably too many. That's why they have it juiced down to -105 on DraftKings. Like I said, my number on this game is Chargers -1. So at +3, I think there is a little bit of value on the Titans. Take it over at FanDuel at the -110. Next game up, the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kansas City is 0-1, coming off a loss to Detroit, 21-20 in the opening game of the season on Thursday night. Remember, they played that game without their best defensive player and arguably not their best offensive player, but one of their 2 best offensive players in Travis Kelce. Jacksonville 1-0, coming off a win over Indianapolis, 31-21. Indianapolis actually did not look bad in that game. Jacksonville did for the most part, but managed to turn it on towards the end of the game to get that W there. If Kelce and Jones both play in this game, I would have Kansas City deserves to be favored by about 4 points. If either one of them sits, then that number is probably -3, which is what we have over on FanDuel. I have no problem, though, taking the -2.5 on them on DraftKings right now, and even paying it, even though it's juiced up to -118 right now. Anything below a field goal, I think there's some value on this game right here. So the -2.5, -118 on DraftKings, that would be a place to play them right now. Like I said, assuming that Kelce and Jones play, this spread should probably be -4 based on my numbers. If either one of them sit, it's probably closer to -3. If Kelce sits, you could make an argument it should be 2.5. But either way, I do think that's a good number if you can get them at under a field goal. So the next game up is the New York Giants taking on the Arizona Cardinals. As you can see, there's no spread listed on this game because the New York Giants are playing right now on Sunday Night Football. We do this game at we do this video at halftime of the Sunday Night Football game. And the Giants are currently getting their butts kicked pretty bad here by the Dallas Cowboys. It's an absolute bloodbath. I do not see the Giants turning this around here, but I will say this. I do think the Giants are the better team than the Arizona Cardinals here. I would have the Giants favored in this game by about 5 points. Again, maybe that number adjusts depending on how things go, but I am not going to take what's happening to the Giants right now on Sunday Night Football and make too big of an adjustment off of 1 week. Dallas is a team I like a lot. I mentioned in the first video, they have a chance to win the Super Bowl this year. So I expected them to beat the Giants. Did I expect them to beat them that bad? No. But the Giants basically had some really, really bad luck in that game. They had a blocked field goal. They had a couple, pick sixes or fumble recoveries that got ran back. And, that game just got away from them very quickly here. I think the Giants are a better team than we saw them on Sunday night. And I don't think Arizona is a very good team at all. And I think the Giants will bounce back here. So Giants -5 is my number. We'll have to wait to see what the number comes out at this week. If you guys really want to know if I think there's value or not on this, make sure you guys get over to 4deep.com. We'll be talking about it a lot more in our Discord. The next game up here, the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Buffalo Bills. I'm surprised that they had a number up for this game because Buffalo does play on Monday Night Football against the New York Jets. That game has not taken place yet, depending on when you're watching this video. Maybe it has, but we don't have the foresight to see that on Sunday night and how that's going to work itself out. With that being said, Vegas is 1-0. They had a win over Denver 17-16. Not a bad W for them. Again, Vegas is a team that is a little bit above average, but, kind of a middle of the road NFL team. Buffalo is one of the better teams in the NFL. They play on Monday Night Football against the Jets, so we'll have to see whether or not they win or lose that game. You guys will probably know that by the time you see this video. With that being said, when I break this down, I get Buffalo should be favored by about 7.5 points here. Now, again, without seeing what happens on Monday Night Football, without seeing how this line might move between now and then, sight unseen the Buffalo Bills right now, this is probably too many points. Is it enough to put me on the Raiders? Probably not. I want to at least wait and see what Buffalo does on Monday. With that being said, like I said, the numbers that I have based on, my rating system has Buffalo favored by a little bit over a touchdown here. Next game up, the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Baltimore 1-0, having a win over Houston 25-9. Can't really tell too much about a team when they beat up on a Houston team that we think is pretty bad, but they went out and they did what they were supposed to do. Looks like they may have lost starting running back J.K. Dobbins in that game, and Mark Andrews was out for that first game of the season. We don't know whether or not he's going to be back. Cincinnati 0-1 on the year. They lost to Cleveland 24-3. I mean, listen, when I use my numbers in this game, I get Cincinnati should be favored by about 4.5 points. Now, that's assuming that what happened in the week 1 game that they had against Cleveland, where they lost 24-3, that Joe Burrow was able to knock off the rust, because that offense looked absolutely horrendous in that first game there. Their offense was stale. They weren't able to move the ball. They couldn't throw. I mean, it was just a very un-Cincinnati Bengals-like performance. Now, Burrow did not play in the preseason. Maybe he needed that game to kind of get himself going. I don't really have an answer to that question for you. All I can do is kind of look at the numbers and break everything down the way I do. The way I do, I think Cincinnati should be favored by about 4.5 points here. So that means there is some value on that -3, and it is juiced down on both of these sites at -105. So I would wait, see what happens here. Maybe you can get this number at a 2.5 at some point this week. If you get it at a 2.5, I would like it a lot more. And also, you got to take a little bit of a leap of faith that Joe Burrow is going to be okay and they're going to play better next week. Next game up, the Chicago Bears taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Chicago is 0-1, coming off a loss to Green Bay, 38-20. Tampa Bay 1-0, coming off a win against Minnesota, 20-17. When I break this game down, I get the Bucs should be favored by 4.5 points. I think there's a lot of value on Tampa Bay here. -3, -108 on DraftKings is nice. I would rather take the -2.5, -118 over on FanDuel. We talk about all the time how the number 3 is a major key number. So if the number 3, if you're getting at the -2.5 there, that's 2 points of value based on what I think the spread should be, which is Bucs -4.5. And you know what? Maybe I'm a little higher on the Bucs than other people are, but I was higher on them last week against Minnesota too. Told everybody Baker Mayfield is not as bad. Again, not a great quarterback, but he's not as bad as people think he is. And they still do have a lot of weapons there with guys like Godwin and Evans, Cade and Rashard White. Like this is a pretty good team here. They got a good defense still, or at least a solid defense there. I think Tampa Bay is a good team here. You can get them at -2.5. I think it should be -4.5. 2 points of value. You're crossing the 3 there. A lot of things to like about this. Take the Bucs on FanDuel, -2.5. That's my bet. Next game up, Seattle Seahawks taking on the Detroit Lions. Seattle 0-1, coming off a really bad loss to a Los Angeles Rams team, playing without Cooper Kupp at home, 30-13. Detroit 1-0, coming off a really good win against a Kansas City team, 21-20, that was playing without Travis Kelce there. When I break this game down, though, I get the Lions should be favored by about 3.5 points. 5.5 feels like a few too many. I think it's a little bit of an overreaction to the first week of both of these teams. I think it's an overreaction to the fact that the Lions beat Kansas City, and I think it's an overreaction to the fact that the Seahawks at home lost to a Rams team that was playing without Cooper Kupp. Those two things make this number way too high here. I don't think it should be as high as 5.5. Like I said, 3.5 is my number here. So there is value on the Seahawks at plus 5.5 here. Again, FanDuel has it juiced up a little bit at minus 115, meaning that they know that it's probably likely to come down at some point, maybe plus 5, maybe plus 4.5. DraftKings is the place to play it. You're getting that plus 5 at a standard minus 110 juice. That's where I would take it, and I would take it early in the week because I do think this number is going to drop before the week. I don't think it's going to get below 3 there. I don't even think it's going to get below 4, to be honest with you. But I do think it's going to drop from the lofty 5.5. Last game in the 1 o'clock window, the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Houston Texans here. Indianapolis 0-1, losing to Jacksonville 31-21 on their opening game. Houston 0-1, losing to Baltimore 25-9. When I break this game down, though, I get the Colts should be favored by about 4 points. I think this is an absolutely ridiculous line that the Texans are favored in this game. Indy looked like a competent team. They were even winning that game for most of it against Jacksonville. They made a couple mistakes late, and you know what? That's fine. They got a young quarterback. They got a team that most people thought was going to get blown out in that game to begin with, and they hung for pretty much the entire game. The 31-21 final score actually looks worse than that game was. They were up going into the third, I think even going into the fourth quarter there. Houston, on the other hand, they were never really in that game. Now, again, they played a Baltimore team that was playing without Mark Andrews, that lost their starting running back, J.K. Dobbins, early on. Again, they were supposed to get beat pretty bad, and they did get beat pretty bad. But I think Indy at least showed us enough where I don't understand how Indianapolis is an underdog in this game. So, again, I think Indy should be favored by at least a field goal. My number is actually -4. I'm not even going to bother with the spread here. Just take Indy straight up on the money line at -102. I think that's the way to go about doing it today. First game in the 4 o'clock window, San Francisco 49ers taking on the Los Angeles Rams. San Fran 1-0, beat up on a Pittsburgh team that was rolling people in the preseason that everybody thought was going to give them a good game. Beat up on them pretty bad, jumped out on them early, wound up winning that game 30-7. The Rams, surprisingly 1-0 on the year, beat up on a Seattle team that people thought was going to roll them 30-13 here. When I break this down, I do think this is too many points, though. I get San Francisco -4. So 49ers -7 feels too many. Now, listen, I don't want to put too much stock into what the Rams did to Seattle. I don't know how it happened. I don't understand. I watched parts of that game. I guess I just thought Seattle was a better team than they showed. I guess the Rams actually showed us that maybe they're a little bit of a better team than, we thought they were, even without Cooper Kupp. With all that being said, I do think -7 on the road seems like a few too many points. So to me, the way to go about doing it, take the 7 with the Rams. It's already juiced up on both sites to -115, which means it's more likely to drop down to 6.5 than it is to get up to 7.5. So you want to go and take that number right now before it drops below that +7. Get the full touchdown there on that side. I do think that's the way. It's, again, based on my numbers, it's 3 points too high. I don't feel really comfortable about it, but early in the season, sometimes that happens. And sometimes early in the season, even if you're not comfortable about a number, if that's where it's telling you to go, that's where to go. +7 on the Rams is the way to go. Next game up, the Washington Commanders taking on the Denver Broncos. Washington 1-0, 20-16 win over the Arizona Cardinals. Again, the Cardinals are not a good team, so I don't really think that's all that great. Washington was favored by 7, so they did not cover in that first game for them. So a little bit of a disappointing performance there. Denver 0-1, losing to the Las Vegas Raiders. Kind of told you guys there's a good chance that could happen. I don't get it. I don't think this Denver team is very good. I get the Broncos should be favored by 2 points in this game, right? So, I mean, if you're giving me 3.5 with the Commanders, yeah, I'm going to take it. It's 1.5 points of value. We're crossing that key number of 3. Again, even over on FanDuel, you can get the Commanders +3.5 at -105. Again, that does say it's more likely to go to 4 than it is to drop down to 3. But even right now at the +3.5, I mean, +3.5 -105, I'll take that on the Commanders. I think that's the way to go. So Washington Commanders, FanDuel +3.5. That's the bet. Next game up, the New York Jets against the Dallas Cowboys. Again, the Jets play on Monday Night Football against Buffalo. The Cowboys at halftime putting an absolute beating on the New York Giants here right now. The Cowboys look really good. This is a tough game for me. Like, obviously, we don't have the hindsight of saying what, the Jets are going to do in their first game, and we've only seen one half of football out of Dallas. Dallas's offense hasn't really looked all that good, but then again, they haven't really had any opportunities to look all that good, and they are going up against a pretty good Giants defense here. Dallas's defense, on the other hand, looks absolutely great, and this is what scares me about this game. I get Dallas should be favored by about 5 points in this game, and I'll tell you why. The Jets are playing a tough Buffalo team on Monday Night Football, which means that they're going to have a short week. They have to travel to Dallas to play in this game right now. It's a bad spot against a good team, against a good defense. Again, Dallas's offense is probably better than what we've seen them do in the first half against the Giants. They're going to go up against another tough defense in the Jets here. I mean, again, I'm a Jets fan for everybody who knows, and I am not looking forward to this game next week. I would love it if the Jets can somehow pull off the win, but I will say if they go into Dallas on a short week and beat Dallas, not only will it be a win, but it'll be an upset. So I do think Dallas is a deserving favorite. 5 points is the number that I have here. Hopefully the Jets can play better than that, but that's where the number should be. If you guys want to know a little bit more about my thoughts on this game, once we actually have a spread, again, get over to 4deep.com, sign up, hang out in the Discord. You'll see me there. Feel free to ask me those questions this week. Next game up, this is the 8 o'clock game, and it's a good one too. Miami Dolphins taking on the New England Patriots. Miami is 1-0, coming off a win against a very good Los Angeles Chargers team, 36-34 in a back-and-forth game last weekend that ended up as high-scoring as many people predicted it would. New England is 0-1, but it's not a bad 0-1. They lost to the defending NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles 25-20. They got blitzed at the beginning of that game, but then fought back to actually make it a game here. So it was a decent showing there for New England, despite the fact that they lost. People are going to think I'm crazy when I say this, but I actually think New England should be favored by 1 point here. Now, on a neutral field, I think the Dolphins are about a point better. It's not a neutral field. This game is going to be in Foxborough. That gives them a little bit of an advantage there. And that's how I get Patriots -1 as the number that I think it should be here. I just think the wrong team is favored here. So you're looking at a situation of strength versus strength. The Miami Dolphins offense is very good. The New England Patriots defense is incredibly good. So really it comes down to weakness versus weakness on who's going to win here. The Patriots offense is a weak offense. The Dolphins defense is the weaker part of their team as well. So strength versus strength, weakness versus weakness. And again, the game is in New England. So I think New England should be a slight favorite. When we're talking about points down here by like 1 point, I mean, it's basically a pick 'em, right? Like these two teams are pretty good. If this ever got up to Patriots +3, I would think that would be the side of it that you want to be on. But again, with me thinking this game is a pick 'em, the way that you probably want to play this game is to just take the money line, right? If I think the wrong team is favored, you can get +110 for the Patriots to win, +114 over on FanDuel. That's actually the better place to play it. That's probably the way I would go about doing this. The Dolphins, I think, are a good team. I think they are better than the Patriots, but again, they have to go up and play them in Foxborough. Luckily, they're playing them now where the weather's still nice. If this game was in December, I would definitely be all over the Patriots. Right now, I just have a slight lean that way. So this is one of those interesting weeks where we actually get 2 Monday Night Football games. The first one is going to be the New Orleans Saints taking on the Carolina Panthers. New Orleans is 1-0, coming off a win against Tennessee, 16-15. Carolina 0-1, coming off a loss to Atlanta, 24-10 in their last game. When I break this all down, I get this game should be a pick 'em here. So I think there's actually pretty good value on DraftKings to get Carolina at +3. Do I think Carolina is good? No, I don't think Carolina is good, but I also don't think New Orleans is all that good. They're still without Alvin Kamara here. They got to go travel on the road. I think this is going to be a game that kind of goes back and forth and kind of like the last game here for New Orleans where they won 16-15. Like, I think this is going to be a game that comes down to like a field goal at the end or something like that. So, Carolina getting a full +3 on DraftKings, I honestly think that's the way to go here. So, not a fan of the Saints, not really a huge fan of the Carolina Panthers, but I think this game stays close. So give me the full +3 with the home Panthers. The other Monday Night Football game is another good divisional game. We got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's see here. Cleveland 1-0, coming off that really good win against the Cincinnati Bengals 24-3 in their opening game. Pittsburgh 0-1. They got beat up a little bit by the San Francisco 49ers 30-7. I think Pittsburgh's going to bounce back in this one. I actually think Pittsburgh should be favored by 1 point. So I do think the wrong team is favored in this game as well. Now, again, remember, we're not talking about a key number of like 3 or anything like that. When we're talking about these numbers around the 0, +1, -1, again, it's basically a pick 'em here. So when you have a situation like that where it's basically a pick 'em, I'm not even touching the spread. I'm not taking the +1 or the +1.5 and paying the juice. I think the way to play this is just look at the Steelers to win this game outright. You can take them on the money line. It's juiced down on both sites from what the standard is. -102 on FanDuel is the best place to play it. That's the best number right there. That's where I would play the Pittsburgh Steelers here. And there you go. That's going to wrap it up for our Week 2 NFL sports betting picks video here at 4deepbets.com. Make sure you guys get over to 4deep.com/pricing-card. You guys can sign up and join us here. Get into the Discord. You'll get all the questions answered. You got all of our analysts over there. Plus, you get everything else that we got going on. So definitely make sure you get over there. This is Benny Ricciardi signing off for 4Deep. Good luck, everybody.